Hello, you guys, and welcome back to Be More Light. For those of you guys that are new, welcome. I'm excited that you are here, and I'm so excited to share this word. So welcome back for those of you guys returning, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe because the Lord has been speaking so much, and I know a lot of these words are very encouraging to me, first and foremost, and to so many others. And so I pray that it blesses you today and that you take these words as revelation and edification in your spirit. And really, it's just through the word of God that he edifies us. It's all by his power and by his spirit, you guys. So as I was reading my devotional this morning, I was led to Daniel. And as I was reading Daniel, as I was, studying in, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, the three Hebrew boys that were thrown into the fiery furnace for serving God and not serving King Nebuchadnezzar's golden statue image, I really apply it to my life. And you can definitely walk away with this revelation and this encouragement today. And one thing that I just kept discerning as I was reading this, especially in Daniel 3, was about opposition. Even our enemies are at peace with God inside of us, right? So if you have enemies, if you have people that are trolling you and people that are just going against, you and your faith and your morals and your beliefs in God, it's not you, it's God inside of you. And that tells me, and you should know, that you're walking uprightly, because if there's ever opposition in our lives on this walk with Christ, it is because we're doing something right. And it's all glory to God. I know you're probably thinking she's really hyping up opposition, but in reality, I'm not. Opposition is opposition. We will always go through storms and trials. And the thing is that no one that serves Christ there's no favoritism. And it's not to say God brings storms into our life, but the ones that do happen, he allows so that it can strengthen our faith in him, so we can trust him, so that we are standing in the fire and we're not walking out with smoke, y'all. And this is exactly what happened with the three Hebrew boys. If you have not read the story of the three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I encourage you to read this because it builds my faith. Every single time I read this, it builds my faith. And I want to share this with you today, this revelation, this edification for your spirit today, you guys. It's so good. I'm not going to go ahead and read all of Daniel 3, but please do read this story because even when we have opposition, right here in this, and I'll read parts of it. So we go into Daniel 3, going down to verse 8. It says, "But some of the astrologers went to the king and informed on the Jews," right? So there's opposition against the Jews if they're praying to God, who is, holy. Our God, he's holy. They were caught praying to God outside of worshiping this idol of this golden image, this statue that King Nebuchadnezzar made. You were going to get persecuted for it. So here, it says, they said to King Nebuchadnezzar, these are the astrologers, right? They said, "Long live the king." This is them talking to King Nebuchadnezzar. They said, "You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship the gold statue when they hear the sound of the horn," and all these other instruments that they mentioned. "That decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace." So here we have manipulation at its finest. Yes, we will go through manipulation. Yes, we will be deceived by the enemy. But this is why we have to be so rooted and guarded in the word of God to be able to discern, right? To test, to see what is real and what is not. What are people telling us? Are we believing every word that we hear? Are we testing everything by the fire? Are we testing every spirit? Are we just listening to people and going by with that? Because let me tell you something. There's consequences to what we do. There's consequences to what we hear and receive, right? God says, out of the abundance of your heart, out of the abundance of our heart, the mouth speaks. Meaning what we feed and edify our spirits with, what we're not edifying our spirits with, it's going to come out. It's going to come out one way or the other. So here they're getting against, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. They're saying, "But there are some Jews," right? These three Hebrew boys I just mentioned, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. So now these three Hebrew boys were in charge. They're in charge of overseeing certain things and matters of the king. They were promoted. They had favor as ones that serve God. And he says they pay no attention to you. So now they're going against, this is the opposition. They're going against these three boys who they're in their own lane, and they're saying, there's something about them. Let's find something. Let's get them to be thrown into a furnace. Let's get them to just not be here at all. Let's get them to just not have favor. And that's what opposition, that's what the enemy does. He will use opposition to get you thrown off, to get your faith off of God. So if you keep reading that, King Nebuchadnezzar, he goes into rage, he gets mad. He's like, who in their right mind is not serving my God? Because King Nebuchadnezzar thinks he's a powerful God, right? And in a lot of this story, he's humbled in so many ways. And so if we skip all of that, right, he gets the three Hebrew boys in front of him. He's like, why aren't you guys serving my God? Serving me is really what he says. And they're like, well, we're not going to serve you. We know that you are powerless. We know that you're not a God. And so because they refuse to be accustomed to what everybody else was doing, this is applicable to you and I. Because we don't want to serve the world, and we don't want to serve what everybody else is doing, and the lies and the confusion and the opposition and all of these demonic things, you have to stand in your faith even when you're tossed into the fire. Keep reading on, and it talks about how they were thrown in the fire. And as the soldiers threw them in, that fire was so hot that those guards died throwing them in there. So on top of that, your opposition, your enemies try to persecute you and mock you and throw you into the fire. They won't survive. Your enemies will not survive. They cannot withstand, because although they're throwing you into a fire to kill you, God is using the fire to prune you. Amen. So as they're being, they're walking around, dancing around, right? There's one, I believe it was a soldier who said, here, if we go to 24, but suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace? Yes, Your Majesty, we certainly did, they replied. Look, because now they got to look at what God is doing. They have to see with their own eyes and believe that God is real. It says, look, Nebuchadnezzar shouted, I see 4 men abound, walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god. See, God will often make your enemies not only a footstool, but he'll make your enemies to make amends and peace with you, because it is the glory of God. That's why we have to humble ourselves. That's why we have to be patient. We have to walk in the fruit of the Spirit, of the Holy Spirit, because that is the example that we are to lead as, so that when people do persecute us and mock us and we bless them in return, and we don't repay evil with evil, but we repay evil with good, they say, this person is not like someone I've ever met. This person is so different. But it's because of God living inside of you. And so if you continue towards the end of chapter 3, the 3 Hebrew boys, they step out of the fire. They don't even smell like smoke. They walk out unharmed, without smoke on them, and alive. And so oftentimes when we have opposition, God will allow it to happen. It's okay to get uncomfortable. I know it's uncomfortable. I've been through opposition. I've been through the worst of opposition, where I'm like, why am I going through this? But in reality, it's because God allows it to happen. If we go into the story of Job went through opposition. He lost so much. The only thing that could not go against Job was the enemy harming him with death. He couldn't kill him. Job's faith made him well, even though all was robbed from him, was taken from him. And so that's like you and I in our lives. Yes, you got to go through the fire to serve Christ. It's not because he's a mean God. It's not because he's a terrible God and he's a tempting God. It's because he's a loving God. And oftentimes God doesn't want the old you. God doesn't want you to walk with old patterns and ways. And he wants to strip you and redeem you and renew you and prune you of your old ways. He wants to remove all of that to put a new heart in you, right? A heart of flesh and not a heart of stone. He wants to put something new inside of you so you have a new name. Your new name is grace, and your new name is mercy. Your new name is holy. Your new name is righteous. And the reason why he does this is so that you know who you are in him, so that when you go into the world, he says, we're in this world, but we're not of it. I'm not of this world. I'm not made up of it. I know who I am now. I know that when opposition comes, I know how to stand against it. I know how to use my authority that Christ had placed inside of me because he lives inside of me. I know how to use my authority against the wicked schemes of the enemy. That God wants our eyes open, and in order to do that, he must prune you. And so when you go through the fire, is a testing of your faith each and every single time. Again, he will allow it to happen because he knows we can handle it. So if you're going through opposition in this season, know that you're going to get through it. God would not have allowed you to step into something that you cannot handle. And oftentimes, I believe many times people may leave the faith. It's very hard to leave the faith. It's very difficult to actually walk away from God because he's so loving. So when we do walk away, it's because we refuse to allow him in. And we can't let the enemy do that to us. We can't let him deceive us by temptation, by sin, by flesh, by all these things. So if you're in a season in your life where you're going through opposition, you feel like you're just walking through fire, it's not going to kill you. Because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. God's inside of you. God's leading you. God's rotating your steps. If you made it through the fire, or if you made it to the fire, should I say, consider it pure joy. If we go into James, I believe it's James 1, which I'm going to look it up. If we go into this passage of scripture, we're being told, consider it pure joy when you go through trials of various kinds, because those trials is what's allowing you to persevere and endure. It's allowing you to stand tall and strong in your faith, and that's because of God inside of you. So I believe James 1, starting at verse 2, says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing." He goes on to share here, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God and he will give it to you. See, we're never alone. Even when we're going through trials and storms, we're never alone. We can ask God to help us. Lord, today I'm going to need your strength. I need your wisdom today. How do I respond to this situation? I need grace. I need your grace. And so in any way, he's saying right here, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God. He will give it to you. He's not saying jump through this and that, through these hoops and loops and these obstacles. He's saying, I'll give it to you because that's how you're going to grow. He will not rebuke you for asking, but when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver. For a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. So he's saying, don't just ask, but believe. Believe what you're asking for. And when you don't see it, you keep waiting because God's the one that will come through. Such people, this is people with back and forth faith, people with divided loyalty. He's saying such people should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do. He's saying, if you want the Lord's grace and favor over your life, you have to stand in your faith. That's what it's about. It's all about him. It's about glorifying him. When you can get to a place where you receive that and understand that and walk in that, your eyes are open. You're going to be like, I've been missing out a whole lot. I've been being lied to and deceived by the enemy by believing these lies of opposition, by believing this deception. Just because you go through it, it's not who you are. You're going through a lot of stretching of your old self. That's why it's so uncomfortable, because you have to stretch out of an old wineskin and step into a new wineskin. And I will be the first one to share that it's completely worth it. It's completely worth it. It's so worth forgiving others. It's worth giving grace. It's worth being humble. It's a blessing. And your life is made well in the Lord. And I share that out of testimony. I share that out of encouragement and love and blessings. So again, like the 3 Hebrew boys, if you're going through that, if this is your season of opposition, just know that you're going to get through it. You're going to get through it. And the more you're in communion to the Lord and community, stick with people that love God and can pray for you. Don't ever be ashamed of that, right? He says, confess your sins and your land will be healed. And so he's talking about us, our heart, our well-being, our soul. Confess the things that burden you to those that can pray for you, and God will set you free. That's what we are here for, is for one another. And God's the one that leads us, you guys. And so I pray this blesses you. I pray that if you're going through the fire, let me tell you something. It may be uncomfortable, but it's worth going through it. Stand in your faith and do not waver. This is just your season of stepping out stronger, being promoted, and seeing a new thing, you guys, right? God says, old with the former ways. And he's saying, do you not perceive this new thing I'm doing? Keep your faith. It is so worth it. So I pray this blesses you guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. God bless you.